This is a video for our course BKAMK3033 Seminar in Management Accounting, Group L, for session A242. This video is a group assignment with the title of Organizational Culture Uncovered, Development, Control, and the Cultural Web, prepared for our lecturer, Dr. Muhammad Hairi bin Muhammad Hussain, prepared by Group 8. Organizational culture is more than just dress codes and mission statements. It's the invisible force that shapes how people behave at work. At Apple, for example, culture is built around design perfection, innovation, and secrecy, creating a high-pressure but visionary environment. In pop culture, we see different shades of workplace culture. The Devil Wears Prada shows a rigid, status-driven fashion world. The Intern highlights warmth and mentorship in a modern startup. The Wolf of Wall Street exaggerates greed-filled excess. And Severance gives us a dystopian view of extreme control. These portrayals remind us that culture defines how organizations feel, and that's exactly what we're about to explore.
I will present about organization culture. Organic culture means how things are done in a company. It includes the value, belief, rules that guides how people work and how they behave. It tells us what is okay and what is not okay in the workplace. Just like a person has personality, every organization has its culture. It shapes how people think, act, and communicate, even what they don't realize it. And let's look at the relationship between culture and change. Culture affects how people feel about change and how they react. If a company wants to change but the culture does not support it, the change will be usually feared. To make change work, the culture must also change. That's why we say change needs culture transformation. And now please enjoy a role-play video by our group. The topic is organic culture, what is encouraged and what is encouraged in an organization. Please enjoy it.
Hey Tam, how's the project with the marketing department going?
Honestly, I didn't even bother to check in with them. Last time they ignored the deadline, so I figured there was no point.
I get the frustrations, but skipping that stuff is not really how we doing things here. We are big on collaborations even when it's not easy.
Totally understand where you're coming from, but you know how it is here. We really values open communications. Even if it takes longer, we'd rather have a proper conversation that cut corner.
You're right. I'll reach out to marketing again. Get everyone on the same page. That's how we should be working.
What happened earlier really show what our culture is all about. It's not just the work we do, it's how we do it. Communication is a part of who we are.
Yeah, it's like company personality. It helps us to know what's okay and what's not.
Exactly. And out here, we encourage to speak out and work through problems together. But silence, rants, or skipping steps, that's not how we operate.
And it's a balance. We're encouraged to be open, but also to listen carefully. That's what makes the difference.
Balance is what guides us. It's our culture that keeps us growing, even when things get tough.
Let's talk about the three levels of organization culture. Based on Edgar Cheng model, there are three levels of organization culture, which is level 1, artifacts. The artifact is the things that we can see, hear, and feel in a company. For example, the dress code, how the office look, and the rules people follow. They are easy to observe, but we don't always know what they mean. And the level 2 is explore, belief, and value. There are companies take goal and value such as mission and vision. For example, a company may say they care about teamwork or honesty, but sometimes what they say and what they do actually can be a difference. And the level 2 is basic underlying assumption. These are the deep beliefs that people don't often talk about it, but they follow it every day. For example, a belief like don't question the post or we must always grow. This level is the hardest to change, but it is the most powerful level of organizational culture. Now let's look at the 4 types of organizational culture by Claudius Handy. The first is a power control. This is where a few people make the big decisions. There are few rules and things move quickly. This is common in small business or company with a strong leader. And the second is the role culture, which all about the rules, roles, and structure. Everyone know their job and there is a little change. It's good for stability but not for flexibility. And thirdly is the task culture. This type of culture focuses on the team and project. People work together to solve problems. It is great for innovative and creativity. And last but not least, person culture, where the individual is the most important. The organic culture support personal growth and freedom. And mostly we can see in law firm or in university. Different type of organic culture work best in different situations and different company and industry. And that's all for my part. Thank you for listening.
Organizational culture doesn't emerge overnight. It develops over time from a complex blend of internal and external factors that shape how people behave, interact, and make decisions within the organization. One of the most foundational influences is the organization's history. Past experiences, especially how the organization has responded to crises, challenges, and successes, leave behind stories, rituals, and traditions that shape current values and behaviors. These shared memories provide continuity and identity, but they can also lock people into outdated mindsets if the organization fails to evolve. The primary function and technology of the organization also play a critical role. For example, a manufacturing firm that relies on repetitive, structured tasks tends to develop a more rigid, rules-based culture. In contrast, tech companies or research organizations often value innovation, flexibility, and problem solving. The tools and systems people use daily, whether mechanistic or digital, manual or automated, create norms around communication, collaboration, and even risk tolerance. Strategy is another powerful driver. An organization aiming for rapid innovation might cultivate a culture that embraces experimentation and tolerates failure. On the other hand, a business focused on cost leadership may promote tight control, efficiency, and adherence to established procedures. Essentially, the culture must support and reflect the strategic objectives, whether that's growth, quality, or market differentiation. Size also matters. Smaller organizations typically have informal cultures with flexible roles and closer relationships. Employees often have direct access to top leadership, which creates a family-like atmosphere. But as organizations grow, they become more complex. Formal structures, rules, and policies are introduced, which can lead to the development of subcultures across departments or locations. These subcultures may align or conflict with the overall corporate culture. Location and geography bring another layer of influence. Organizations operating in different regions or internationally face cultural expectations tied to the local context. For example, a company based in a collectivist society may value teamwork and harmony, while one in an individualistic culture may reward personal achievement. Even within the same country, urban and rural organizations may differ in pace, communication style, and openness to change. Management and leadership style are perhaps the most direct and visible influences on culture. Leaders shape culture through what they reward, what they ignore, and how they communicate. An authoritarian leader might create a culture of fear and control, while participative or transformational leaders foster inclusion, trust, and innovation. Crucially, leadership behavior must be consistent. People will always align their behavior with what leaders do, not just what they say. Finally, the external environment exerts significant pressure. In a stable environment, organizations may focus inward and resist change. But in a volatile or competitive market, there's a stronger push for adaptability and continuous learning. External factors like regulation, public scrutiny, and societal values such as environmental sustainability or diversity can reshape culture even more rapidly than internal forces. Together, these factors, history, purpose, technology, strategy, size, location, leadership, and environment, interact to create the unique cultural DNA of an organization. Understanding these influences helps leaders and employees alike navigate change, resolve conflict, and align behavior with organizational goals.
Well, this was another thrilling missions alignment sections. I swear, if I hear excellence through legacy one more time, I might actually time travel to 1998.
It's kind of like the legacy part. I mean, the founder did build this space from scratch. The clothes are grounding.
Grounding? More like cement shoes. Look around, everyone is too scared to blink wrong in front of Kah Yee.
Kah Yee not scary, he's just focused. Ever see the external combined review was announced? Leadership gone into lockdown mode. It's strategy, not tyranny.
You mean forcing us to meet the quota while quoting the founder like scripture?
Maybe, but I think Kah Yee just trying to protect the company. The world watching one mistake and being dragged on social media.
Yes, the culture threatening because the environment is threatening. It's not just top-up control, it's survival.
Still feel like we are trading empathy for efficiency.
Isn't it our job to remind them culture isn't just complaint?
Culture lives in people, not policy. If we want it to feel human, we will go to model that even in the small things.
Next, let's move to the cultural web. In the cultural web framework, the cultural paradigm in the center is the core of the web. The paradigm is also the organizational core beliefs and motivations. There are 6 key elements interconnected and influence the overall paradigm, as well as the organization culture, which is symbol, power structure, organizational structure, rituals and routine, control systems, and stories. The first one is symbols. Symbols are the ritual representations of an organization and its culture. For example, like logo, office building, dress code, corporate identity, advertisement, and so on. Symbols are powerful because they provide a tangible representations of value and beliefs, and also serve as a way to communicate them to employees, customers, and other key stakeholders. When we look at the Apple logo, we see a simple, sleek, and minimalist design that is instantly recognizable. It visually represents the company's core values, innovations, quality, and simplicity. Apple's products also follow a consistent design philosophy, featuring clear lines, minimalist interfaces, intuitive functionalities, and attention to detail. And also the Apple Store is bright, modern, and open, designed to encourage explorations and interactions. It feels more like a showroom than a typical retail environment. Next, power structure refers to the individuals or group that has the decision-making power and most influence in the organizational core beliefs, assumptions, and ideas, which may be based on the management positions, seniority, or expertise.
Oh my god. No, no, no! She's on her way. Tell everyone.
All right, everyone, gird your loins.
Sorry, Miranda.
I don't understand why it's so difficult to confirm an appointment.
No, I'm so sorry, Miranda. I actually did confirm.
Organizational structure refers to the internal structure of a business, including roles, responsibilities, and reporting lines. It can affect how work is done, how decisions making are made, and how information flow within the business, as well as influencing employee behavior and attitudes.
Excuse me, Xuan Jia. I had an idea about improving the team's communication. Can I speak to Kah Yee?
You need to send an email request first. Kah Yee is in meeting all day.
Oh, okay, I'll do that.
Remember you are new. It's best to follow the chain of command. Kah Yee will make the decision here.
I understand. I just wanted to help.
What is going on?
Tom has a suggestion, but I told him to follow for him.
Good, we need structure around here. No one make decision unless it comes from me. That is how we manage quality.
Hey Kah Yee, I had this idea for improving our team meetings. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Awesome, Tam. Grab a marker and schedule out on the board. And let's get Xuan Jia and Zhe Shean in here too.
Great idea, Tam. It's always excited to hear new talk. Your first specificity is exactly what we need.
I will set up a quick meeting for us to discuss it properly.
Thank you everyone. It really feels good to be heard.
That is how we work here. We believe leadership happens at all levels. Everyone has a voice.
Rituals and routine. Rituals and routines are day-to-day activities, habits, and also practices that employees engage in as part of their work. This can provide valuable insight in cultural factors like collaborations, innovations, and also employee engagement within the organizations. This includes the things like regular meetings, performance management processes, team building exercise, and even a simple daily coffee break.
Hey, Ben, are you going to wear a suit every day?
You bet.
Confident. I like how you roll. I like it a lot.
We just hit a record high of 2,500 likes on Instagram.
And that's what we do when something good happens around here. New interns, grab a seat at one of the intern tables.
Next, control systems are the method used by an organization to monitor, measure, and manage the performance. They include the key performance indicator, KPI, appraisals, incentives, and rewards. Control systems help to shape the organizational structure by setting expectations, defining success, and promoting accountability.
Everybody have a good week? End of the month, 28.7 million in gross commissions, all from pink sheet stock, boys! And to celebrate with our weekly act of debauchery, I have offered our lovely sales assistant Danielle Harrison here $10,000.
The last one is stories. Stories are the narrative shared within the organizations about its history, key events, successes, failures, and also the individual involved. It often passed down from one generation of employee to the next. They serve as a way to share the knowledge and experience, reinforce cultural norm, and also create a sense of belonging.
New interns, welcome to ATF. We all work on this one floor, and that is because we're all about communication and teamwork. No one has a private office, not even our founder and CEO, Jules Austin, who is actually right over there. She loves to ride her bike through the office. That woman does not like to waste time. Plus, she counts it as exercise.
That's adorable.
Yeah. All right. A few words about Jules. She started About the Fit only 18 months ago. This whole idea was hatched at Jules' kitchen table right here in Brooklyn. Jules tried everything on that she sold, described the fit herself, and apparently it worked. She was online in 4 months. She started with 25 employees. She's now up to 216. With you 4, 220.
Wow. Any tips before I go in?
Just talk fast. She hates slow talkers. Maybe that's just when I talk slow. Don't dawdle in any way. Just keep it moving. And don't forget to blink.
Blink.
Now, I'll be talking about the culture and organizational control. Organizational culture is more than just a shared set of values or the ways we do things here. It can also be a powerful form of management control. Some scholars argue that culture acts as an invisible system of authority, guiding employee behavior, shaping decision-making, and influencing motivations. For example, Cartwright suggests that when employees accept the cultural values of their organizations, they become easier to manage. They start to identify with the company, follow its rules because they believe it is the right thing to do, and align their personal goals with organizational objectives
In this way, culture becomes a subtle but effective tool of connect. Egan takes it further by describing culture as the largest organizational control system. One day even determines how crazy or unusual someone can behave. There's differentiates between our cultures, what we can see, such as policy and procedure, and cover culture, which is hidden but powerful. For instance, in one's institutions, you have to be an engineer to rise to the top. That was not written anyway, it was just how things were. This example shows how culture not silently regulate who succeeds and how people behave within the system. Watson's expand that in a centralized, bureaucratic culture, control comes largely through rule and structure, but employee commitments tend to be low. On the other hand, in decentralized organizations with looser structure, control comes entirely to share values, allowing for greater flexibility and higher commitment. This shows that culture is not just about what people do, it's also about how much they care about doing it. Despite this argument, some Christians believe that using the culture as a control tool is too late. They argue that it depends heavily on the personalities of individual managers and how they lead. In other words, culture alone does not control people, neither do. Besides, ACAS identifies two main cultural styles in organizations. First is the control culture, where everything depends on rule and compliance. Second is the quality of working life culture, where shared goals and value guide behavior. Similarly, Kurzweil describes a rule-based culture, common in organizations like the military or emergency service, and a value-based culture, where behavior are shaped by ethical principles rather than formal rules. Ultimately, successful organizations often blend both. They combine command and control with culture and value to create a balanced environment. In conclusion, organization culture can be a subtle but powerful control system. It can influence not just what people do, but how they think and feel about their work. However, its effectiveness depends on how it is shaped and reinforced and led by management. In my opinion, culture does influence employee behaviors, but it was based with aligned with leadership actions and employee values, not just as an abstract controlled mechanism.
Hey Tam, your handbook. Here's your handbook. Does you not really care about values here? Respect, excellent teamwork. That's how we do things.
That sounds great. So it's not just about rules and policy. People actually believe in this stuff?
Yes, when everyone doing the right things for the right reason, we don't have to be babysit.
Oh, eating at the desk ready? Go move.
Huh? That's not a lot.
Well, think you know, but it is not done. One of those unwritten rules, you know? Welcome to the real office culture, Tam.
Deadline, we need tighter control. Clear step, no exception.
But if we only use the rules, people just become robots. If they really buy into the mission, they will stay with motivated without being micromanaged.
So basically, trust people to do the right things or drown them in red taps. Good choices, huh?
I used to think culture was just about feeling like you belong, like being part of a family. But now I see it's like an invisible ruler telling you what's okay and what's not, even if no one says it out loud.
So maybe culture isn't just about who we are, it's about how we act.
Whoa, Tam's getting deep. Maybe you should write our culture planning sections.
Shean got a point. Value, unspoken rules, that's all part of the culture.
Yeah, rules are important, but culture is what makes it last.
So guess I'll stick to eating in the break room from now on then.
Now I will continue to present about the importance of culture. There are three main points about the importance of culture, which are culture as organizational control, culture influence or shape the individual and group behavior, and culture drive organizational performance. And I will explain each of these further in the next two slides. First and foremost, The first reason why culture is so important because it acts as a form of organizational control. Even when rules are not officially written down, culture quietly shapes what is considered acceptable or not. For example, in many offices, staying late is seen as a sign of dedication or hard work even if your work are already done. Nobody will say it directly, but if you leave right at 5 p.m. sharp, people might give you a strange look. That is how culture controls behavior silently. In the same way, culture can create unspoken expectation about who gets promoted, how employees should dress, or how they should speak to managers. These informal rules shape the overall social and political environment in the workplace, and sometimes it even more strongly than the official policies. Besides that, the second reason is that culture deeply influences the individual and group behavior. It affects how people make decisions, how they work with others, and how employees feel about their work. A healthy culture encourages people to speak up, share ideas, and support each other. In contrast, a blame culture causes people to hide mistakes and avoid responsibility. For example, if someone is afraid of being blamed for a small error, they may choose not to report it at all. This will stop the organization from learning and improving. Moreover, culture also directly affects the work ethic. As pointed out in my seminar readings, people's willingness to work hard is often influenced cultural pressure, not just personal motivations. In some workplaces, people work longer hours not because they need to, but because they would feel guilty if they're leaving on time. Again, that is the power of culture. Last but not least, the third and possibly most important reason is that culture is directly connected to organizational performance. A strong and healthy culture is an asset which it motivates people, increase innovations, and improve employee satisfaction. On the other hand, a weak or toxic culture can do the opposite, which it will lead to poor communications, low morale, and high employee turnover. Besides that, culture also plays a key role during major changes like mergers or digital transformations. In fact, many mergers fail not because of money or strategy, but because the two companies' culture do not fit well together. So for culture to truly support performance, it must meet three conditions, which is it must be strategically aligned with the organization goals, it must be strong enough to influence behavior at all levels, and it must be adaptable in the face of change. So in conclusion, culture is not just something in the background, instead, it will directly affect how people behave, how decisions are made, and whether an organization succeeds. You cannot fully understand a business just by looking at its number or structure, but you also need to look at its culture. The research and the real-world examples have proved that a strong culture will lead to success, while a weak or toxic culture often leads to failure. That's why culture is not just important, but essential. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hey team, thanks for taking a short break with me. I noticed a few of you staying really late recently. Everything okay?
To be honest, I stay late because I don't want others to think I'm lazy.
I see others still working until 7 or 8 p.m. I don't want to seem unmotivated, so I stay too, even though I finished my tasks.
This already become a common issue. Some staff even scared to report a mistake or ask for help. This is not a healthy culture.
Thank you for being honest. This is not the kind of workspace you want. Let's meet again with idea of how we can improve it again.
Alright.
The next day.
For coming based on what we discussed, it is time to make some positive changes.
First, everyone should know it is okay to live on time. We won't judge. What matters is the work done, not how long you sit at your desk.
That's a big relief. I always worried others would think badly of me. I think we need a culture where people feel safe to speak and also improve things.
I was unsure of what was expected of me. That clears it up, so thank you.
Also, we will start a monthly safe talk session.
you can say mistake, question, or idea without fear. It's all about learning.
Our culture shows support no strategy growth. Let's help each other grow, not completely silent.
That's all from us. Thank you very much.